Just when I thought we were done with this whole stupid idea, Ben from 9 to 5 Mac has to start throwing ideas out at the EU. Ben! I understand you were doing your job. I understand you're looking for journalism. I'm a big fan of 9 to 5 Mac. I've been reading your writing for a long time, but these kinds of headlines are exactly the type of news headlines that get Tim Cook excited. We do not need Apple executives reading headlines like this. And I'll tell you exactly why. Let's begin. You know, for a long time, people were telling me that Apple would never switch to USB-C because Portless was right around the corner. Clearly, Apple has banked so heavily on Qi and MagSafe, and they want to be able to charge iPhones of the future purely magnetically, right? Then they go and turn around and make a 16E that doesn't have any MagSafe support and extra slow wireless charging. So, great, entirely future-proofed. But then at the same time, Bloomberg's Mark Gurman is reporting that there were earlier prototypes of the iPhone Air, the one that we should be seeing in just a few months, that were actually entirely portless, that didn't have a USB-C port at all. By all means, right, let's see how much we can take out. It doesn't have a triple camera or a dual camera, doesn't have room for a Qualcomm modem, doesn't have room for stereo speakers, just have to get slimmer and slimmer and slimmer, get this thing as thin as possible. So yeah, why don't we chuck out one of the smallest overall components in the whole device? I guess that's my biggest criticism of this idea. I know that Apple is still toying around with it, but engineers, guys, at Apple, Johnny's gone now. He's off with Love From working on AI crap. You guys should focus on your AI crap, and also, the USB-C port is not the bottleneck here. It's not the limiting factor. I think by far the most common criticism people are going to give the iPhone 17 Air when it comes out later this year is that the camera bump is obnoxiously large. You're already willing to bend the rules, let's hope you don't bend the phone, just to say, oh, look how thin the iPhone is, but then the entire upper chunk of the phone gets way thicker than the rest of it. But you're like, oh, well, yeah, to achieve this thinness, we had to remove the port. No, if anything, if we're still gonna have a giant, thick camera bump at the top, why don't we just move the USB-C port to the top? Seems like you don't care about part of the phone being somewhat thick. You just want most of it to be thin, just so that we're abundantly clear. A lot of phones these days are sitting between like 7 to 9 millimeters thick. iPhone Air is supposed to be around like 5.9 millimeters thick. Not quite as thin as the OLED iPad Pros, but still the thinnest iPhone of all time, even thinner than an iPhone 6. And if we look up the thickness of a USB-C port, we're talking 2.5 millimeters, okay? Do we really need to get a phone that absurdly thin? I think the structural rigidity is going to be the main question at that point. If we start trying to make phones thinner and thinner and we get to the point where USB-C ports are just too thick, so you want to ditch them, well, this thing is literally going to bend when people are like pulling the plastic off the screen out the box. How strong and rigid do you think you can make an aluminum railed glass and glass battery sandwich if it's got to get like down to 3 millimeters, okay? I'm fine if Apple wants to experiment with thinner and lighter designs. 5.9 millimeters, maybe in the future we get it down to 4.5. But my point is, you could have a 4 millimeter thin iPhone and still have plenty of room left over for a USB-C port. Why do I care so much about having Type-C? I don't know. Maybe it's because I don't want to have to throw hundreds of cables into landfills again. All these old lightning cables people are having to get rid of because all the new iPhones are switching to Type-C, likely ending up directly in the nostrils of turtles. And once we start getting rid of more and more ports and saying, no, everybody's got to move over to MagSafe, now we just got to buy new cables, more accessories, and I feel like that defeats the whole point of what the European Union was going for. The entire idea behind a universal standard was that we could use a single charger to charge everything, which is what I'm doing right now, and it's great. And that's the way it's meant to be. We have the technology now to do power, data, video, audio, and time travel through the USB-C port. We already have that on our MacBooks. We have it on our iPads and iPhones. It's a shame we can't put them on the Apple Watch, but at least we have it on the charge case of AirPods, and I just don't want Apple experimenting with this again. You held on to Lightning for so dang long. We were all begging you to switch to Type-C way back in 2015 when you launched a 12-inch MacBook, but you didn't want to switch over because, well, everybody has lightning cables. Well, guess what, Apple? Now everybody has Type-C cables. Where's that old logic, huh? Where's that argument of, well, you know, lots of people already have Type-C and we want it to be easy for you to switch to a new iPhone. Getting rid of the port will not make this easy. If anything, it makes diagnostics and troubleshooting way more complicated. It makes charging slower. It makes data transfers harder. Why are you bragging about Thunderbolt speeds on the Pro iPhones if you're planning on ditching this thing in a few generations anyway? Just because you can doesn't mean you should. So please, Apple, I know you're watching this. Don't read Ben Lovejoy's article and look at that as the green light to start making portless iPhones. And Ben, I love you. I love the joy you bring to 9 to 5 Mac, and I appreciate all of the years of articles, but please, Ben, don't encourage this type of behavior. These headlines are what get Tim cooking, and Tim needs to focus on Apple intelligence right now. He does not need to be thinking about, ooh, what's the next big Apple controversy that will get lots of people talking? It's almost like Apple enjoys coming up with controversies like this one because it gives all of us Apple sheep a chance to sharpen our defense lawyer skills. Okay, me planning the argument. How do I write the comment on Drew's video? You know, it's actually okay if we go portless. It's better for water resistance or some bullcrap like that. Don't use that argument with me. Don't talk about security with me, okay? We already know people can't hack through the iPhone through the USB-C port unless you're the FBI, and they probably found a way to hack into iPhones through resoldering NANDs in the first place. They're not even utilizing the port, so it's not a security thing. And the main limiting factor with water resistance comes down to speakers. So don't act like it's the port that's the reason the iPhone can't be more water resistant. I know because I have a Doogie phone that is IP69 rated. Yes, that means a higher water rating than most other smartphones because of how rigid and strong and durable it is. And guess what? It's got a USB-C port. With that USB-C port, with its USB-C port, you can charge its absurdly large battery. This is not a sponsored video, by the way, but I'm just saying you could take a pressure washer to that phone because of how water resistant it is, and it has nothing to do with the port. It has everything to do with the speakers, and y'all aren't scuba diving with your iPhones anyway, so don't act like this is an important detail. If you care about the durability of the phone and you think getting rid of the port will make it last longer, well, that argument doesn't even work here as well, because the phone is going to get much more fragile if you make it frickin' 4 millimeters thick, or even thinner, which you would have to do actually to justify removing the USB-C port. So leave it there. It's fine the way it is. It's not hurting anything. It's only going to make the phone worse and create a bunch of e-waste if you experiment with getting rid of it. So I don't even care if it's on some models. Well, some people can have the option to... No, not all options are good, okay? iOS 18 and 17 home screen customization should be an example of that. Where's my OG Steve Jobs Apple that's like, we don't have options anymore. Our lock screen is a clownfish and you don't need to change it because that clownfish is beautiful and perfect the way it is. You don't need a bigger iPhone. 3.5 inches is perfectly fine. If you need a screen bigger than that, buy a 9.7 inch iPad. Anyway, I appreciate you all for watching, and thank you to everybody supporting this channel directly. Seriously, helps us out a ton, as does just watching these videos. So thanks again. This is your Apple Sheep here, and I will see you all in the next one.